Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I'm Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today's game will be played against Dromai. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, while explaining my thought processes for the lines that I take, and we compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns, with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our play in the future, taking down paper events like Road to Nationals and ProQuests, and most importantly, walking away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Without further ado, let's jump into our sideboard and our game plan. Today's video features my Switchblade list. If you would like to check this list out or try it for yourself on Talishar, the FaB link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and that Patreon link is available in the video description as well. We lose the die roll, and Dromai will be going first. This is not optimal for us. The Dromai matchup is one of the few where we do want to go first. Most Dromais are on the royal plan at this point to support Tome of Imperial Flame, so usually that turn 1 will involve breaking the gold, which generates 2 ash, as well as whatever ash they create during the rest of that turn. So we really want to go first if we can. As far as sideboarding, we are not going to change anything about our equipment. We want to be on Kodachis here. We want to be drawing cards with Mask of Momentum. Because Mask of Momentum draws a card on a hit, not on hero hit, we trigger it from killing dragons. So we are rewarded for doing what we would want to do in this matchup anyway. We are going to stick with Furnace. I know some FaBs take the greedy path of running Fiandal Spring Tunic, but how I have found that Dromai wins this matchup is by hitting with Kylorias and with Snatches. So we want to be able to block those with armor and cards from hand. It slows us down a bit, but it prevents Dromai from getting that card advantage that she uses to overrun us with dragons. Dromai does have Asvali and Burn Them All in the deck, so arcane damage is a real threat, but we just want to play very tightly, efficiently, and create powerful turns, and Shuko and Snapdragon Scalers help us do that, so we aren't going to bring our Spell Void or our Arcane Barrier. This is an older version of the Switchblade list. I have not put Censors into the list yet, and Command and Conquers are still in the main, so we aren't going to make any changes to this deck list. We don't need defense reactions for Dromai. While Warmonger's Diplomacy can have potential uses against her, as it prevents her from playing Tome of Imperial Flame and attacking with dragons in the same turn, or playing an Invoke card and attacking with that dragon in the same turn, it isn't such a huge upside over something like Stab Wound, so we don't need to include it. If you are using the most recent version of my Switchblade list, we are boarding out Censors and boarding in Command and Conquers. Command and Conquer is a popper. It triggers Phantasm, which kills Dromai's dragon or her Miraging Metamorph and potentially ends the turn. And if we are in a position to play Command and Conquer, it punishes her for keeping a defense reaction in her arsenal. The game plan here is very efficient use of Kodachis. We want to be triggering Mask of Momentum every turn, and if Dromai is flooding the board with dragons, it's very easy for us to do that. Throwing a Brand with Cinderclaw at Dromai's face, using Kodachis to kill Ashwings, then picking up a Phoenix Flame to attack a dragon for your third consecutive hit is a great way to trigger Mask. There are a lot of tricky plays and sequencing you can make or do to trigger Mask Momentum by killing dragons, so that really is what we're looking for here. The more redline Dromai list is a bit harder to get your mask triggers off of. They don't run quite as many dragons, but the slower, more controlling big dragon lists are really just free. Tome of Imperial Flame, as you'll see, gives Dromai a big leg up in this game. It certainly does not make this matchup favored for Dromai, or certainly even equal, but it takes the Dromai matchup from a 70-30 to maybe a 60-40. And while that's still very favored for FaB, it means that out of every 10 games, you'll lose 4 of them. So there isn't too much else to say about Dromai. FaBs have been playing this matchup since Uprising's release, and it has never been a good one for Dromai. But we'll jump into the game and see how all of our preparation comes together. Our Phoenix Flame goes to discard. We can see that Dromai is on the royal plan, and she will be starting this game by making 2 ashes from the gold. Playing out a Miragai here to stay ash neutral, and she wisely will not give us the opportunity to filter our hand. So we can think about how we want to sequence this turn. Killing Miragai is the most important thing that we need to do. There are a few ways to do it such that we also get our Mask Momentum. The easiest way to really ensure that we are triggering Mask this turn is to throw a Kodachi at Dromai. We assume that she's going to take that damage. She doesn't want to give us a full Flamescale Furnace to stop it, and it is very unlikely that she's going to pitch an entire card to Silken Form to stop our first attack of the turn. So if we throw a Kodachi at Dromai, we can then throw our second Kodachi at Miragai and a Ronin Renegade at Miragai to kill it and get our mask trigger. There is a consideration for using Mounting Anger to kill Miragai. We spend 1 card to do so, and we get our Mounting Anger trigger, but that opens us up to not being able to get our mask trigger this turn, and mask trigger is more important than Mounting Anger. So we will start with a Kodachi going at Dromai. We are hoping that our Mask Momentum draws us a finisher or even just a 0-cost head jab that we can throw at Dromai, then we can arsenal our Mounting Anger. Worst case is probably a blue, but even then we can throw our Mounting Anger at Dromai, pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, then arsenal our Ronin Renegade. Drawing into Salt Wound here is really, really good. Unfortunately, we cannot pick up our Phoenix Flame this turn unless we wanted to pitch our Mounting Anger to do so. We don't. So we are just going to throw Ronin Renegade at Dromai, then end the turn with Salt Wound and arsenal our Mounting Anger. Overall, this is a really solid turn for us. We leak a little damage onto Dromai. We did get our mask trigger, and we keep the board free of dragons. I prioritize killing dragons in this matchup. I think reducing the power of Dromai's Burn Them Alls is really, really good. Dragons are just really great value for Dromai. Every dragon has a value of its offensive power plus its life total. So an Asvalai is a 0 for 6. The Dromai has to have Ash, but taking the time to kill the dragons just keeps her alive. It is a life buffer. We're seeing the power of Tome and Gold on this turn, as Rake the Embers itself is not a very strong card, and certainly not in the FaB matchup when we are on Kodachis, but it is effectively a 1 for 6 based on what I just said, that every dragon is worth its offensive value plus its life total. So each of these Ash Wings is effectively 2 points of value with an additional 1 point for every turn it stays alive. So Dromai just did 2 1-for-6s, which is pretty strong, but this line isn't possible without gold and without tome. So we're seeing the power of that tome in Dromai. Now again, Dromai isn't doing anything insane here, but without it, these Rake the Embers are very bad cards. But she's getting the full value out of them, so 1-for-6 go again is really strong. We aren't going to block any of the Ashwings. There really isn't a strong incentive for us to do so. If we had a popper in hand, I would have popped the first Ashwing to prevent 6 points of damage, but we are happy to just take this because we can throw a lot of damage back at Dromai. The first thing that I really want to do this turn is trigger Mask of Momentum. So we can throw one of these Brand with Cinder Claws at Dromai's face, then throw 2 Kodachis at 2 Ashwings, and finally pick up and play a Phoenix Flame and attack one of the Ashwings. I don't really want to burn my Shuko trigger on the Ashwings, so what I might even do instead is Brand at Dromai, second Brand at Dromai, that gets the Shuko trigger, then throw Kodachi, Phoenix Flame at an Ashwing. We float a resource, which lets us play our Mounting Anger. We can play our Blaze Headlong from hand, and whatever we draw off of Mask of Momentum may alter our turn as well. Choosing instead to open with double Kodachi Brand with Cinderclaw, I don't necessarily love this line. Compared to what I had said, I would have liked to maybe get some blocks out of Dromai earlier just to see what the rest of our turn looks like. But overall, we are still going to be able to play out our entire hand. We can still pick up our Phoenix Flame. So this sequencing, while maybe not ideal, is not diminishing the overall value of our turn. Drawing into red Brand with Cinderclaw here, that is probably going to go into my arsenal. So we need to play a red card to give Blaze Headlong go again. We are going to start with Mounting Anger. As far as these 3 Ashwings, again, I don't want to throw my Shuko trigger at one of them. So we will be throwing this blue Brand at Dromai. We'll pick up our Phoenix Flame and attack the 3rd Ashwing with it. Then end the turn with Blaze Headlong. And this just goes back to me wanting to keep the board as free of dragons as possible. These Ashwings staying alive is just added value for Dromai. The Ashwings that died this turn were effectively 2 points of value, 1 point of damage at us and 1 point of life for Dromai's. But the 2 Ashwings that are staying alive are now 3 points of value because they are getting in another attack each. So leaving Dromai's dragons alive just gives her more value in a deck that really needs to accumulate that value to beat FaB. Dromai drawing all of the defense reactions early is both good and bad. On the one hand, we would really love to be doing damage to Dromai. On the other hand, if she is using them to stop damage from Blaze Headlong or Salt the Wound, then she isn't using them to stop on hits like Bittering Thorns or Snatch. Ravenous Rabble here, revealing a Flamecall Awakening. We're just going to take this damage. We have an Art of War in hand, we have a 5-card hand, and Dromai is not threatening any on-hits, so we are content to just take this damage. Even the Miraging Metamorph is 7, but we are going to take this. We have a very difficult decision to make on this turn, and in fact, this is the pivotal decision of the game. As you'll see, everything kind of spirals from this turn. Do we play this Art of War or not? On the one hand, Art of War is the strongest card in our deck. We have a blue to pitch for it. We can banish our E-Strike. float 2 resources, have our Bittering Thorns, a red brand in arsenal, and whatever comes off the top of our deck. This could be a very strong turn for us. On the other hand, we can play out a very strong turn just with what we have available and stick the Art of War in arsenal for the future. We would like to kill these 2 Ashwings, and we don't want to bleed value to do it. So if we throw Brand with Cinderclaw at Dromai, if she blocks, we can think about using Art of War. If she doesn't block and takes the damage, we can throw a Kodachi at 1 Ashwing, then pick up and play our Phoenix Flame to attack the 2nd Ashwing, and that draws a card off of Mask of Momentum. Now we float a resource, so maybe we attack with Bittering Thorns, then we end the turn with E-Strike and arsenal our Art of War. So while playing the Art of War here would certainly be very good and is not something that I would ever fault anyone for, my thought at the time of recording and my thought now, and of course you can disagree with this, is to play out the rest of the hand and save Art of War for a worse hand when we don't necessarily need to kill these Ashwings. But all of this hinges on whether Dromai blocks this brand. So we are going to throw 3 at her face and see how she reacts to it. She chooses not to block. There is also an argument for playing the Art of War now, banishing E-Strike, because she isn't blocking this and assuming she doesn't have a defense reaction in hand, we can still go through our line of Kodachi and Ashwing, Phoenix Flame, Ashwing to draw a card. What I don't like about that is I am wasting a point of damage by killing an Ashwing with a 2-power Phoenix Flame. And you could certainly argue that the power of an Art of War turn makes up for the wasted point of damage, but my mentality at this point is I can afford to be uber efficient against Dromai. We trigger our Mask of Momentum and we draw into another brand with Cinderclaw. We've already picked up our Phoenix Flame. We only have 1 floating resource, so we can't play out everything in this hand unless we wanted to bottom our Art of War to E-Strike, which we don't. At this point, we could still play Art of War. We would banish our Bittering Thorns, draw 2 cards off the top of our deck, and potentially have a very strong turn. But again, I'm thinking of this like we are already having a strong turn. We are threatening a potential 12 points of damage by playing Bittering Thorns, then attacking with E-Strike and bottoming Brand with Cinderclaw. I just want to stick this Art of War in arsenal and wait. We're doing a lot of damage to Dromai with what we have. Let's not stack it all up on 1 turn, let's spread it out. So we do attack with Bittering Thorns. Dromai takes the damage, so we are just going to throw E-Strike for 8. And we will arsenal this Art of War. Dromai keeping a 4-card hand is pretty scary. We know that there is a Flamecall Awakening in it, which is effectively belittle at home when Dromai can pitch a Phoenix Flame to Flamescale Furnace. Dromai playing a 2nd Tome of Imperial Flame is very good for her. Pitching 2 strong attacks makes me very afraid of what else she might have in hand. Flamecall Awakening is not anything that we need to worry about. We see that we do have a blue in hand and 3 strong reds, so I am looking at playing the Art of War here. Snatch for 4 with Snapdragon Scalers available is something I want to block, but because we have such a strong 5-card hand, I really don't want to block with any of these cards, so I am going to give up my Shuko here. Losing the Shuko against Dromai can be bad. Shuko is our best way of killing Yenderai efficiently. It's also just a great way of pushing damage. We have a lot of attacks in our deck that work with Phoenix Flame to get the Shuko trigger, but letting Snatch hit and letting Dromai accumulate that value and that card advantage is how we lose games. So I am going to block this with Furnace and Shuko. As we expect, Dromai breaks the Scalers and throws a Command and Conquer. It's extremely unlucky for us. There are a few options available to us right now. We could take this damage, lose our Art of War, and keep our 4-card hand, which is still pretty good. We can go 7 links wide on this turn, threaten multiple mask triggers with multiple breakpoints. We could also block the Command and Conquer with Rising Resentment, Double Strike, and Soulbeat Strike. We stay at 18, our turn just throws Blaze Headlong at Dromai, then passes, and we keep our Art of War. Thinking about it, you can see that I'm going to pass block and reactions, lose the Art of War, then throw a hand which equals 12 points of damage with a potential Mask of Momentum trigger. But thinking about it now, I am inclined to block the CNC with everything but the Blaze Headlong and look to play Art of War on a future turn. We keep a healthy life total. Dromai no longer has Scalers available, so the power of future turns goes down. Maybe she draws into another CNC, and that puts us into a weird position, but if Dromai takes 4 damage from the Blaze Headlong, then our 4-card hands become a lot better for dealing without Art of War. So if I'm making this choice now, I am going to block this CNC. You can see that I don't. We go to 12, we lose our Art of War, and we look to sequence out this 4-card hand. What I like doing here is pitching our Soulbeat Strike to attack with both Kodachis and a Double Strike. If Dromai wants to stop this mask trigger, she either needs to block the Double Strike with Flamescale Furnace and she loses value. She also takes Flamescale Furnace off of the table for blocking Blaze Headlong or Rising Resentment with a 2 block from hand. Or she pitches a card to Silken Form, which again takes a resource away from her from blocking either the Rising Resentment or the Blaze Headlong. That isn't what I'm going to do here. Here I'm going to attack with the Rising Resentment, then a Kodachi, then a Blaze Headlong, which is still fine, but it front loads the damage on our chain, and I would like to backload the damage. I would like to force Dromai to react to a very obnoxious string of attacks. Even here, we could throw a Double Strike rather than a Blaze Headlong. We've seen that Dromai has the defense reactions. We know that she has 2 blocks in her deck. So stopping this Blaze Headlong is a lot less obnoxious than stopping a Double Strike. We do throw the Blaze Headlong. We do get 4 block from Dromai, but I really would have rather had her stop this Double Strike, because she still is able to stop the Double Strike. We don't have our Shuko, so we can't pump this Double Strike up to 2 unpreventable damage. We're just going to throw Double Strike for 1. We'll throw Double Strike for 1. Dromai will Silken Form one of those 2. We have a resource to pick up our Phoenix Flame and have the option to either attack for 1 or arsenal it, and I do like arsenaling the Phoenix Flame here. Without any Shuko trigger or Mask of Momentum trigger, the Phoenix Flame is just 1 point of damage, and while 1 point of damage is always good, if we can keep it to enable a stronger turn, that is going to be more value for us overall. Skittering Sands here is an interesting card, not one that I see very often. We don't have a popper, so we will just take 5 on this turn. If we did have a popper, we would have broken that 1 power Ashwing. Snatch here for 4. This is the end of Dromai's turn. She does not have Snapdragon Scalers, but with us being at 7, I really don't want to go to 3, and I don't want Dromai to have a card in Arsenal. So we will block this Snatch with Furnace and our Stab Wound. On our turn, we will kill both of these Ashwings with Kodachis. Our Bleed Out costs 0, so we'll throw that at Dromai as a mask trigger, and then we have our Snatch. I like ending with Snatch. I don't like leading with it here. I want to bait a defense reaction from Dromai on this Bleed Out, then throw the Snatch. It's unfortunate that we have this Phoenix Flame in Arsenal because we can't Arsenal whatever the Snatch draws. And for that reason, I might even be inclined to lead with Phoenix Flame for 0, just to get it out of Arsenal. I do choose to lead with the Snatch. I think this is wrong. It isn't the worst thing in the world, but I would have rather had Dromai throw these resources at the Bleed Out, then throw the Snatch. Work the Phoenix Flame in there somewhere just to get rid of it. As it is, Dromai does commit 3 cards on defense this turn, which is really, really good for us, depending on what this last card is. Dust Up for 4 is very strong. Making the Ashwing is potentially bad for us. Generating an Ash and passing is not something we really care about. The worst thing about this Dust Up is that our hand on the return is really bad. We would love for one of these Lava Bursts to be a blue. We would even love for E-Strike to be a blue. And if I had a blue in this hand, I would be much more inclined to block Dust Up with a 3-block and Mask of Momentum. As it is, we kind of need to keep this hand if we want to do anything meaningful on our turn. At the same time, now that I'm looking at it, I do like blocking Dust Up for 5, using a Lava Burst and a Bittering Thorns, then throwing E-Strike for 7. We preserve some life, we take Dromai down to a potential 4, or we get some blocks from her, and look to just reset. There isn't much of an other option here if we wanted to use Mask of Momentum to block. The most we could do is pitch to a Kodachi. That's just really bad. So if I'm making this call now, I am blocking this Dust Up for 5. Instead, we choose to take the damage and drop down to 3. On our turn, we will be pitching our Lava Burst to attack with Bittering Thorns. Ideally, this hits, and we can attack with our Phoenix Flame for 1, then E-Strike for 7. Dromai has the defense reaction, blocks the Bittering Thorns, and we will throw this E-Strike for 7. If we had taken the alternate line on our last turn, blocked the Dust Up, and thrown the E-Strike for 7, Dromai uses the Sink Below. We are both sitting at 7 here. With that potential life buffer, we may be able to turn this hand into something. Drawing Art of War here is pretty unfortunate because we really need something that can block, and we don't have a blue in hand to pay for it. Dromai playing Chromai, we will need to block this. We'll throw Mask of Momentum at it. If we had that life buffer, we could take this damage. And Dromai playing Kyloria. Kyloria is something that we will need to block. We are going to play our Art of War to try and draw into a 3-block that we can pump up to 4. We draw into an E-Strike, which is nice because we gave our attacks +1 defense and power. E-Strike is now a popper. So we can pop this Kyloria, which still prevents the same amount of damage, but also takes Kyloria off the table. The problem is that we are in a very bad position this game. We cannot easily kill Dromai, so we really just kind of ignore it and hope Dromai drew into something bad. Our best option here might be Rising Resentment Dromai, Phoenix Flame at Dromai, then Ravenous Rabble at Dromai, throw a potential 5 points of damage, and get a card away from her. At the same time, we can throw 8 points of damage at Dromai and get 2 cards. We've really lost this game already. At this point, playing to our outs, it's not something that we really even can do. Dromai does not have the potential to brick at this point in the game. So we throw all of our damage at Dromai. Ravenous Rabble flips a yellow, which is unfortunate. This is an easy 1-card block from Dromai. Leaking 1 point of damage over the top here might have put us in a position to kill her later. As it is, we just do some blocking. We'll block with the Lava Burst, keep our Salt the Wound to pay for Kodachis if somehow Dromai just bricked. Blaze Headlong here coming for 4. We will block with Salt the Wound. And we get to throw some damage back at Dromai. Rabble here coming for 4. Dromai does have a defense reaction. The Snatch can kind of go wherever. Again, we've already lost. These decisions don't matter at this point. Draw into an okay hand. Dromai draws into Asvalai. We are only at 1 point of life, so we just die. Dromai playing a second Asvalai, and we will concede. So, a really rough game for us. Losing to Dromai always feels terrible. That isn't something that we are really used to. I think it's been months at this point since I've lost to a Dromai. But there were a few reasons that it happened. I would not say that this was the Dromai high roll. It is certainly not a turn 0 Tumultai. But some things certainly did go Dromai's way. Seeing the 2 early Tome of Imperial Flames was very good. Turning 2 Rake the Embers into actual 1-for-6s is not something that Dromai can do on turn 2 without Tome. Dromai winning the die roll and choosing to go first went to her favor. The biggest problem we had that game was Dromai drawing into the Command and Conquer to hit our Art of War. I think we could have reacted better to it. I think blocking to protect the Art of War was correct. But Dromai could have also just not drawn CNC there. That was unlucky on our part. As the game went on, Dromai just continued to draw well. Defense reactions lined up very well with all of our hit triggers. And we did draw into at least a couple clunky hands that game. Certainly the biggest was the double Lava Burst Bittering Thorns E-Strike hand. Our takeaway, certainly my takeaway from this game, is that Dromai can draw very well, and Dromai can beat us with good draws that are no longer reliant on 3 Kylorias in the top half of the deck or 3 Snatches in the top half of the deck. If Dromai is drawing tomes and making ashes, our brick hands need to be used on defense. Protecting the Art of War is relevant that game, and mitigating life loss puts us into a position at the end of the game where we can tank the damage from a Dromai, then throw our Art of War to kill her. So it's something that I need to learn, and it's something that I need to internalize, that if Dromai is drawing well, she is a real deck, and I need to respect that. I can't just take for granted that my brick hands are going to put her in a position to block or play defensive or even lose because my deck is just so much better than hers. And it's something I didn't respect this game. Her game state is not something that I reacted appropriately to, and it is something that I will fix in the future. I do hope you enjoyed this game. I do hope you learned something from it. For all you Dromai players out there, I hope you got the satisfaction and the schadenfreude of seeing a FaB lose. If you experienced any of this, be sure to head jab that like button for me. As I said, I do have a Patreon now. Please check it out. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free, 5 days a week. Patreon gives you Discord access. Patreon gives you potential bonuses in the future as I work to better implement the system. It is a work in progress. Getting in at the ground floor will only get better. But regardless of whether you subscribe, patronize me, whatever, if you enjoy daily FaB gameplay, know that I will be back tomorrow. And until then, take care.